Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Katie Olson. I'm editor of ADPro, Architectural Digest community for interior designers and other members of the trade. We are here today for Next in Design, which is an exploration of 2021's biggest design trends. So first off, it's very important for us to discuss our incredible partners at CB2. Give a huge shout out to them for making this possible. This is the second of our three-part series between ADPro, Crate & Barrel, and CB2's trade program. So thank you to them for making this happen. And the reason that we're here today is because interest in home design is skyrocketing. And that is major news for designers, for members of the trade, for furniture brands, for everybody on this call, most likely. So in today's expert panel, we're going to be taking a glimpse into the major design themes, products, and client requests that are shaping our year ahead. And to help me out, because I cannot do this alone, we're going to be breaking it all down with the help of CB2 and some of our newest AD100 designers. So with that said, I am incredibly excited for this conversation. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our lovely guests. So first up, our friends from CB2. So Ryan Turf is joining us. He is the creative force behind every CB2 touchpoint. With more than 15 years of experience at the company, he has an innate understanding of the design-minded consumer. His leadership and insights have been instrumental in the brand's growth. And we are really excited to have you here today. So hi, Ryan. Nice to see you.
Hi, Katie. Thank you.
Absolutely. And joining us also with you is Sarah Koja. Sarah leads the strategy, design, and development of all furniture at CB2. That sounds like a dream job to me. Lots of creativity needed there. Over the course of her 15-year tenure, she's also helped evolve categories like textiles, decorative accessories, and lighting. Prior to becoming a home merchant, Sarah's work also involved guiding design projects for brands like Godiva, Conair, and SC Johnson. Sarah, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Next, we have Corey Damon Jenkins. Corey is one of our latest 2021 AD100 debuts. He is a nationally acclaimed designer based in New York, and his signature mix of vivid colors, layered patterns, and refined materials has made him a global favorite. Corey, we're super excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
Yes. Next, another of our 2021 AD100 debuts are Andre Herrero and Adam Charlotte Hyman of Charlotte Hyman and Herrero, which is a LA and New York-based architecture and design firm that takes a fully integrated approach from concept to execution. Their portfolio includes buildings, set designs, stores, and homes. Principals Adam and Andre at the helm. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome. So why don't we get started with a quick chat among all of us, do a little fireside chat here. So obviously we're seeing this huge surge of interest in design. I have friends who, don't know a sofa from a couch, and all of a sudden now they're quoting, they're quoting and telling me about design. I think it's really funny. But in all seriousness, it's major news for us in this industry. So consumer spending is up. Consumer engagement is up. And I'm really interested in hearing from each of you as to how you've experienced this uptick in your respective businesses. So Corey, why don't you start us off and let me know how have you experienced this surge of interest?
Well, it's interesting when the pandemic first really took off last winter. We all, I think, expected a huge crash in our industry, but like you just mentioned, there was actually the exact opposite response. People were like, look, I'm not going to go on vacation. I'm not spending money on fashion because no one to see. I'm going to spend it in my home. And so there was a huge uptick. And it was really eye-opening, I think. The convenience and the comfort level that people had with signing contracts, sight unseen, and having these conversations with us via Zoom. And I think it's important that we meet people where they're at, because a lot of our clients were already comfortable, I think, with conducting their own businesses and their platforms using social media like Zoom and FaceTime and other platforms. But I think we as designers, we had to get more comfortable with it, because we were like, well, you have to see the fabric and touch the hand and feel everything. And they're like, no, we hired you, we trust you. So it's actually been a fairly smooth transition to this new virtual world of business and interior design, at least for us.
Yeah, Andre and Adam, is that the same for you? Have you experienced that in your business?
Yeah, I think we've certainly seen an uptick as well. And I think something that we've noticed is we have a lot more younger clientele. And I think that's younger clients just aren't going out and about, and they're at home and they're wanting to create the experiences that otherwise they would have gotten by going out in their home. So we've certainly noticed a lot more youth in the design.
Definitely. I think that bodes well for the future, right? People who start getting interested in design at a young age tend to live. They don't want to live without it as they grow up. Ryan and Sarah, how about you both? How has that impacted your day to day? How has this rising interest impacted you?
Thanks, Katie. I think that's a big question for us, but it's impacted us tremendously, I think. At first, like Corey was saying, it was a huge unknown early on. But then really since that first month, we've seen a huge surge in people's interest in their homes, and specifically online sales are through the roof. Because of the obvious, people are stuck at home and, looking at their spaces and wanting to make them better or for different uses, and all the above really has driven so much drive and so much interest in what we do, which is exciting from that part. Then the other side, I think, people with this renewed focus, on their space, people have either looked to move to out of the city for larger spaces to do more with, or if they're not moving, they're wanting to change it for different uses and different things. So it's been really crazy, a lot going on, but exciting too for us. And we've had, certain categories that have seen resurgence, like the obvious categories like the office furniture and outdoor furniture. I think outdoor, because people are obviously hanging outside more and wanting to make those spaces more interesting too. But
yeah, we're asking more of our spaces these days, right?
Exactly. Right.
Function as my workspace, as my homework for the kids, as a craft table. We're asking quite a lot. So I think we're going to begin it. We're going to come back to those points. I think especially outdoor is fascinating right now. I know before we all got on this call, we were all sharing what areas of the country we're in today, and some of us are in colder areas than others, and it's tricky. It's really necessary to have that connection to nature. So I'm excited to get back into that later. So we are going to jump straight into our visual presentation, because I know designers and probably everybody on this call is very interested in visuals. So we will start with, actually, I'm sorry, we're not going to start with that just yet. Pardon me. We're going to start speaking first with Ryan and Sarah, because I want to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty on the CB2 brand and on an initiative that you guys have launched recently, which is your trend report. So maybe you can tell me a little bit, Ryan. I know you're not huge on trends, but we're sitting here today talking about trends. So before we get into those photos that I promised, why don't you tell me a little bit about how CB2's approach to trends changes year over year, and maybe some of the considerations that you guys make when you're balancing what's trending right now, what we might be seeing on Instagram or hearing about from our friends, with the preservation of classic design. Maybe you can walk us through that first.
Sure, thanks. I'll start by, sorry about the awkward situation with not being big on trends and talking about trends, but let me explain myself. We love trends, and trends are very much inform a lot of what we do. I think, what I mean by that is I don't love the trends. I don't want trends to define who we are, right? And they're very important, and people obviously pay attention to them. But I like our team and our brand really looking to all areas for inspiration, right? So that's about what are the trends in art, what are the trends in architecture and fashion, and vintage is vintage furniture, vintage design in general is something that's really been trending as of late, but it's been something that's been inspiring us for a very long time. I think at CB2 we're just super passionate about design, unique design, and how that can really help people define their space and their self-expression. And it's really about designing your home. And I think these guys on joining our call today can really elaborate on that, and how people really want to love their space and have their space reflect who they are. And I think trends are part of that, but shouldn't define that. And I think that's where I was coming from.
Yeah, and I'll say, and how we actually make that work is, it is just that, we all see these trends. We're all on Instagram. We're all inspired by these things, but it's really about doing it in a way that's unique to either a specific client, or in our case, unique to our brand and true to our brand. And, you know, we're always trying to evolve and push things forward. And so it's about, how do you take what you see, what you're inspired by, and incorporate it into a way that does work for our brand. And so
Right.
is it a material? Is it a finish? Is it a silhouette? And that's kind of like, you know, the formula that we do, or that we figure out to make it all work. So
Exactly.
Kind of that balance of classic and what's up to now.
yeah.
So Ryan, you mentioned inspiration. I'm wondering if you can share some examples of maybe some of the more unconventional places where you find inspiration, and then how do you take that really abstract inspiration and transform it into physical reality, into a product that we can actually pick up and buy and use and sell to our clients?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, I was mentioning the different places we go for inspiration. Obviously, right now, so much has to be virtually. You know, but you know, before the pandemic, travel was a huge place of inspiration for us, and I think for a lot of people. And I remember, you know, a few years ago, I was fortunate enough to peel away from my kids for a little bit with my wife, and we went down to Miami and went to the iconic surf club, you know, in Miami. And I was so inspired by really the history of the place, right? So the place was designed super beautifully by Joseph Durand on the interiors, and so inspirational and so emotional. You know, design is just, to us, is so much about the emotion you feel when you walk into a space. And I was just so inspired, not only by the emotion of those few days I had there, but also about the history, right? And you know, where it started in the 20s and the 30s, and the, you know, the Firestone family, and you know, everything that kind of went into why that club came about, and then the resurgence and the remodeling of it, and how to make it more relevant of today, but true to the history of it, right? And I love the just the passion of making things relevant and fresh for today, but being inspired by the past. And it was just so inspiring and so cool to go to a place like that. So that's just a great example, I think, of how we, and then we came back and we talked, you know, with our product developers, and Sarah leading a lot of that, of, you know, how can we take things that were trending or things that just felt right, like travertine was a material that was all over that space and just felt really cool and fresh at that time. And then, you know, pass that on, and Sarah and her team could take that and turn that into product.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that, you know, when we approach our process, it's more than just aesthetics, it's also the vibe and the energy. So, you know, and I think that's similar to interior design, is you're creating environments, you're creating a sort of energy, and we do have that same approach with a lot of what we do. So beyond just the materials like travertine, or is it, you know, natural rattan, or anything else that sort of comes from a space like that, it's also what is like the story and what is the vibe that we're really trying to get across. So, and I think that's really where the magic happens.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm actually just a mile away on foot from the surf club, so I need to make it my business to get over
Jealous.
there.
You should
Some
go.
people going quite
We're
mad.
all jealous of Katie right now.
So, you know, we're talking a little bit about the past, but I know the brand is also really concerned with what's next, and the future of design. And so I'm wondering, Ryan, maybe there's a tease you can share with us, or maybe not. There's the journalist in me always wants to know more. But I'd love to know what are we going to be seeing happening at CB2 next collection? Anything that we can look forward to in particular?
Yeah, I'll be careful, Katie, of what I can say and what I can't do. No, but I think, you know, what's next is, building off my earlier point, is just hyper focus on design. And I know that can sound a little general, but we're really about design and unique design. And, you know, to be able to do that, we can't just rely on us and the people working in our buildings. And we really have to partner with great designers, unique designers, fresh designers. And, you know, I think we have some really exciting collections coming up this spring. One I can maybe allude towards at the end of this, but I think, you know, every month, or at least every couple months, we really want to have something new and exciting for people to look at. And it always comes back to design. And whether that's reissuing classic designs, which is something we're looking at, or really bringing fresh design from a great partner that nobody's ever seen before. But if I have to answer it in a few words, it's just about design and the freshness and uniqueness of it, for sure.
Very cool. Well, to speak to that, we're going to bring on Andre and Adam from Charlotte, Hyman, and Herrero to speak a little bit to some of the trends that is mentioned in the trend report. And I would encourage everybody who's on the call today to check out the trend report. We'll make sure that you get your hands on it after the call, because it's really fascinating. And one thing for me, just reviewing it, it really jives with everything I've heard from designers over the last couple weeks. So you really have your finger on the pulse of what's happening. So to speak to exactly that, we're going to bring on Adam and Andre, and they're going to walk us through some really gorgeous images. We're going to have them on rotation so you can all check them out. Their projects will be rotating in the background. They're going to speak to us a little bit about what we're seeing here and some of the styles that clients are gravitating to. So Andre and Adam, I'd love to hear from you guys. So what are some of the styles clients right now are moving toward? What have you seen recently?
Well, yeah, thank you. I think there are a few things that we've noticed coming up again and again with different clients across different kinds of projects in Los Angeles and New York and even some other places. Something that people seem to be loving are these kind of monochromatic spaces or little explorations of monochromatic palette that is rendered in different materials. So a velvet with a linen, with a carpet, with a stone, with a tile, you know, all in the same color, seems to kind of just be doing something a bit electric for people, like they're just like it. And there is definitely something luscious about it. And whether it's a little moment in a room or a suite of furniture or just a set of curtains or the whole room, as you could see in that blue kind of niche, that's something that's been coming up. Another.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, what?
In that blue, I'm sure the picture will come back, but in that blue space, it seems like you said the same color. It's monochromatic, but they're different materials. Maybe you could tell a little bit about some of the materials in that room that we're seeing. There it is.
Yeah, sure. So we started with this kind of, it was a little bit of an awkward space off of a living room in an apartment in New York, and we used velvet on the wall to the right, the same velvet on the kind of day bed that's built in. The walls elsewhere and the ceiling elsewhere are painted a matching color. There was a kind of a custom linen that we did to match for the curtain and for this little lampshade that you can see on the sconce that's on the wall on the right. And then there's a silk carpet. And actually then additionally, the painting has a woman wearing a blue dress. So it's really all one thing. And it kind of, frankly, I guess at the end of it, it all becomes about that one mirror in the middle, which is so fun. It's by the artist Misha Khan, and it kind of shines there in contrast to everything else. But that's a fun, I mean, it's a fun kind of artistic way to put things together, is to start with things all in one color and see how the different materials interact and kind of bring things out in each other that are maybe unexpected texturally. And then it's fun, of course, to kind of throw something in that's not in keeping with that color scheme. So yeah, that's something that keeps coming up. Another thing that we've been, you know, a little bigger idea, I guess, but it's really coming into a lot of our projects, a lot of our conversations, very naturally, very organically, is that people seem to really be liking a combination of a sort of a modern or an early modernist aesthetic, things that are marble and chrome and very clean lines and machine made, paired with things that are really very handmade looking or have something of nature, of the hand, of a very organic quality. So straw, wicker, sisal rugs, clay, pottery, handmade textiles. So the kind of combination of those two things, it does seem to be doing something for people. And we've been finding that a lot of the pairings that people are drawn to most when we're presenting ideas to clients are these pairings where there's very extreme tension between something that's sort of a Bauhaus and something that's, you know, maybe made by an artist now that's terracotta, or an abaca rug. So that's another thing. And then I guess a third one that I just was going to touch on was a kind of surrealistic. Oh yeah, this image really, I think, shows well what I'm talking about with the modernist mixed with sort of the hand, and a very human kind of quality. And then I was also going to say, I mean, this image can also work for it as well. Just a kind of surrealistic energy. So that takes the form of scales that are wildly different, juxtaposed in a space. So something really big next to something small, and also in figurative elements like this rug, this snake rug, or in another image, we have these like face chairs. But I think this surrealistic touch of kind of a dreamy quality has been, I guess, popular amongst our clients. They're drawn to it, and it's certainly a fun direction to get into for us. So, yeah.
Part of me wonders if it's in response to this kind of unusual world we're living in with Zoom, you know, that mix of the human touch, the surrealism of being together in one virtual room, but not really being in the same room. It's really fascinating. So speaking to that, and in the trend report too, we see how people are spending more time at home, and it's turning into a refinement and the development of their personal style. So I'm wondering, with your clients, you know, with the collective spending so much time at home, are your clients discovering changes to their personal style, and how so?
Andre, do you want to speak to this one?
Am I speaking to this one? Yeah, no, I think clients, they're definitely, as they're spending more time at home, I mean, some sort of basic architectural things are happening, such as, I think, like the death of the open floor plan and creating more personal, scaled spaces. And then within those, you know, let's say you have a small apartment or a small home, it's not about opening it all up now. It's about creating these pockets where you can sort of have a different type of moment or think or feel differently. So you have your work moment, you have your party moment, you have and these are intimate party moments, you know, you have your Bali moment, your yoga retreat, your city nightlife moment. I mean, I think it's like, and through those, it's discovering what your personal fantasies are and how it all sort of ties together and finding common threads there. So it's pretty exciting, and it kind of goes along with something that Adam and I really sort of think about a lot is creating these architectural worlds for people where we think not only about the architecture, but we also go down in scale to the blue linen lampshade. And so we really try to create that total experience, and it's fun to just interject diversity into that experience now, because you can't go out and get the diversity. Let's bring it home.
Speaking to that, I've noticed a lot of pitches that I receive, a lot of designers I'm speaking to, some of the clients that I get to speak to on behalf of the designers. I see a lot of interest in patina. So what we call unapologetic self-expression, and sort of, you know, the super neutral, I'm sitting in a very neutral space right now, so I can talk about the old world, but the new world seems to be this unapologetic self-expression, adding patina to one's home. So do you use vintage? I know you do. How do you use vintage and reissued classics to kind of communicate that depth and maybe add some age to a space in a client's home?
Yeah, I mean, we love working with antiques and vintage furniture and sometimes vintage textiles too, which is they're harder to find. But yeah, I think that I guess a little what I was talking about before is related to this idea of tensions in a space. So old and new, high and low, expensive and inexpensive, big and small, even, you know, I think all of these things are elements that work together to make a dynamic and exciting space to be in. So certainly, I think finding old things is so important for a space, and whether it's mostly old things and then that gives you the backdrop to interject one new thing, or whether it's mostly new things and then, you know, the old piece can really shine and give a sense of patina and history and just a different kind of texture. You know, it really does add something. And I guess something funny to note is that it's sometimes the hardest thing to get into shopping for antique furniture with our clients. A lot of times younger clients, I guess, are hesitant to do it. There's an element of shopping online that can be very intimidating because you're not necessarily seeing the piece before you buy it, etc. But by the end of the process, I think that a whole world has really opened up for them of shopping and auctions and antiques. And generally, when we're done with the project, we're getting, you know, emails and text messages and Instagrams well after from people asking us what we think of this or that, or, oh, we just bought this, because they get kind of hooked. You know, it's a really fun aspect of the process, I think.
Oh my gosh,
and
because I love
yeah.
window I'd love to see what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
also sustainability in vintage furniture is something to note as well. I think there's a more prudent, more sort of discerning client that is really thinking about where things are made and who made it. And I think that vintage furniture, there's a quality there that has stood the test of time, and I think it's going to stand the test of time. And I think that's something that we certainly see as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're gonna bring Sarah back on now to speak a little bit more, and then we'll bring you guys back on towards the end. There's a lot more I'd like to ask you, and I would really like to go shopping with you. So maybe when this pandemic takes a pause, we can arrange that. So we'll bring you back on soon. So Sarah, fascinating to chat with the guys, because I know this is part of your research and part of the trend report is what they spoke to. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, you know, we mentioned it earlier, there's this increased interest in compartmentalizing the home. You know, we're using it for so many different purposes. We live here, we work here, we raise kids here, we entertain, at least on Zoom here. So how do you suggest that designers and clients sort of siphon off different areas of their home? And do you consider multi-use furniture as part of that equation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know for me personally, when we started quarantine, you know, like a lot of people, I was working at the kitchen table, you know, or if you're working at the island, or if you're even working on your sofa, and just how like draining that is, because time kind of becomes this like long string. And, you know, I think that we forget that there is a ritual to a commute, and there is this sort of transition from like home personal to work, and there's different energies in those spaces. And when it all kind of became one capsule, it was like really exhausting and daunting. And I like kept joking, I'm like, I feel like I live in a space station. Like my whole life is like this one space. So I think, you know, if you are lucky enough to have a dedicated dining space, I think it's important to maintain that. If you are lucky enough to have the space to dedicate to just office and work, I think that's hugely beneficial to keep that energy there and to keep your home as a home. If not, and this is personally what I do, I kind of have flex furniture where it is a ritual. It's kind of like the new commute where I take a chair from my bedroom, I bring it into the office, I have this thing that flips down and it's my desktop. And then I use that during the day. And then at the end of the day, I put the rug back, put the chair back. So it's kind of like a transition. And I think the same thing can happen if you can even like sneak a console table into living space and kind of have that little corner squared off for just, work. Or if you can, bring things, if you do have to work at a kitchen table or on your sofa or wherever, if there is a place where you can stash that away when you're all done, so it doesn't feel like you're living in an office. I think that's, hugely helpful, not only for productivity, but I think too, in people in our industry where you're still having to be creative under restrictive terms. And I think it really does help like foster that.
So sort of that packing up or the moving the computer out of the way, pulling the rug away at the end and the beginning of each day sort of serves as your barrier, your commute.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the new commute. It's 4 seconds, which is amazing. But in all honesty, I think we would all rather be with people. We want to, we're social beings, but I think this is a way to sort of like transition.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I never thought I'd say it, but I do miss my my ride downtown on the E train every morning. Maybe not every morning, but I have fond, wistful memories of the subway these days. So I'm going to take that tip and maybe I'll set up a different workspace with that in mind, kind of creating that barrier. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
We also mentioned earlier in our chat the use of outdoor space and how important that's becoming. So I'm wondering what is the brand's approach and what's your approach to your outdoor furniture and the quality and the process of involved in that?
Yeah. So, Ryan spoke to this earlier, where in our approach with, everything that we do, we take inspiration from a lot of different places. And, I think that what you'll see this year with our outdoor collection is, I think when you look at the outdoor furniture market in general, it can tend to feel a bit commodity and there's a lot of sort of sameness. And a lot of that has to do with restriction of materials that you can work with because it does live outdoors. But, we really want to approach outdoor with the same level of integrity as we do indoor. And so we're constantly pushing the limits in terms of like forms, materials, finishes. So, this year we're really going to level up our game. And what you can see here is a collection that we'll have launching, actually we'll be launching soon online, you'll be able to see, is our Karina outdoor lounge chair and sofa designed by Marmolada studio group that we work with a lot. And here we've really leveled things up in that we're using a lot of faux rattans for this upcoming collection that look really realistic. And we're using a lot of different types of faux rattans that will allow us to have this like really varied and layered look, but still really harmonious because we wanted it to feel like really natural. Vintage was a huge draw of inspiration as well. And then we've paired it here with a polished stainless steel frame. And then we're super excited because for the first time this year, we're going to start layering in sunbrella fabrics. So this is just really to speak to wanting to make sure that the level of quality is, at a place that it can stand the test of time, to speak to sustainability. And because we want to make sure that we approach it with the same level of integrity as we do our indoor furniture.
Absolutely. So now outdoor, just to confirm, so outdoor is now core to the collection. It's no longer a seasonal offering. It's kind of a dedicated offering.
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky enough to live in Miami, California, it definitely is, maybe not so much in Chicago. But yeah, no, for sure. Like we definitely see our outdoor business continue to be strong throughout the fall. And I do think a lot of that is with a lot more emphasis being placed on an outdoor space during this time. People are just really valuing and trying to eke out every moment of outdoor space because it's like all we have right now.
Oh, I love Sunbrella too. It's just such a solid brand. And so to know that you're working with them is very exciting. The
Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah, we're super excited.
Very cool. Cool. Well, we are going to now chat with Corey. We'll bring you back, Sarah, in a moment. We're going to talk a little bit more about color and optimism, which was another highlight of the trend report. So we are going to see some of his projects. Hi, Corey.
Hey.
Good to see you again.
I'm just enjoying what everyone's talking about. It just feels so good and right on point. I'm just sitting here like nodding my head like, yes, yes.
It resonates, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It does. It feels really applicable and relevant to the times that we're living in right now. So it's what's fascinating to me, having looked at the report and chatting with you and Andre and Adam, is that it really makes a whole lot of sense. It's exciting. So why don't we chat through some of the projects that you shared with us? The trend that we really wanted to discuss with you is color and optimism and the use of color. So you know, we're seeing a movement away from neutrals. We're looking at a lot more bold pops of color. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think that, you know, the thing about trends, they have that moment and then it's like milk, they expire, right? And then you throw it out. And so I think that for a while, people were all into the neutrals, the sugars, the creams, the beiges and browns and the grays, and that's lovely. And then it had its moment. And then we move forward and the pendulum swings a different direction. We have our two offices in New York City and in Metro Detroit, Michigan. And what the Northeast and the Midwest both have in common is snow. We're hit with snow for the vast majority of the year. We have gray skies and bleak winters. And so I think that for a lot of the people living in, you know, large swaths of the country, they're dealing with these gray skies. And so they want to see more color in their home. So I think that that's the big push, Katie. I think people get depressed. I think that the last year has been exceptionally difficult being closed in during a pandemic in snow with gray skies. And so we've just seen this huge uptick from clients who are asking for more vibrant colors, jewel tones, you know, the emerald, the sapphire blue, the maximalism. They want all of that because it's the exact antithesis of what they've been living with up till now.
Absolutely. I can speak to that too, having traveled so much, as most of us on this call. Anybody who works in design tends to travel quite a bit, whether it's for an install or for inspiration. And I know for myself, my home had been totally white and neutral because such an onslaught of visual stimulation. And now that's all gone. We're not seeing it as much. The only visual stimulation I get is through a screen. So to add like the layers that Adam was talking about, the color that you're talking about, it really makes a whole lot of sense.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the colors that your clients in particular are asking for? Are there any in particular they're requesting, or do you have to nudge them a certain direction? You walk us through that.
Well, I think that colors of the earth, I think, speak to people. People are very opinionated. They may say, oh, I hate blue or I hate green. Probably the more accurate statement is, I hate certain shades of blue, certain shades of green. Maybe you don't like pistachio or mint, but you do like emerald green, right? So I think that many people are asking for colors of the earth because that is what surrounds us. This room right here, for example, this is what we call a flex room for a couple and their family that live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And you see here this huge celebration of vibrant teal and sapphire blue and the citron yellow. And this is a room where the children do their homework. And so it took on a completely new significance during the pandemic because they were in a lockdown. And so when they asked me to design this flex room, which was specifically coined that way to be a space where they could do homework during the day, where the adults could have a cocktail at night after dinner, I chose colors that speak to retention of learning new things. When you go into the classrooms, blue, green, yellow, those are often colors you see painted on classroom walls. Because scientifically, the experts say that those colors are great for retention of education and learning new things. So what do we learn from that? Our planet is carpeted in green, the sky is blue. We seem to react well to that color palette. And so that's why I did in this space here. So the kids come to this space excited. They have a dedicated room that's designed with their education in mind. And now it's taken on this big meaning now because they're doing all of their schooling here at this point until this pandemic has passed on.
So it sounds sort of like the color can influence a function or can serve a function. There's a psychology behind the colors that you choose.
Yeah.
So fascinating. Has that changed in the wake of COVID-19? You know, the way that delineate different spaces in the home using color?
Yeah, I mean, we always ask clients on our questionnaire, what are your favorite colors? And I'm not just asking that to be nosy. I genuinely want to know, do you get depression in the winter? Do certain colors trigger that? I had one couple, they were having a lot of arguments at dinner time because against my professional recommendation, I had told them to not do this, but you know, at the end of the day, I'm going to oblige. They had painted their dining room ruby red. Ruby red is a beautiful, sexy, vibrant color, but it can also induce passion and also anger. And so they were having all these arguments at night around the dinner table. And so once we figured that out, that that's where those conflicts were happening, we repainted that room a different color because that color is more conducive to peace. So designers and architects, we are responsible. We're the governors of how people live their lives as far as the homes they live in. We're responsible for that. So we definitely take care with the right shades of color that impact a person's emotions, their moods, their swings of moods. You know, all of that is on us as professionals. Absolutely.
So there's an image there of speaking to color, of ionic columns in a really beautiful bath. And they're painted, I think it was a lime. We'll see the photo will pop up again soon, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
but,
the Minneapolis bathroom.
Yeah, gorgeous with the library. There we go, with the library behind it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your use of color there, and also the contrast? Because I think those are Walker-Zanger tiles, right? That are really
Walker-Zanger tile on the floor, the Calcutta inset to it. So I find that most clients are going to fall in one or two categories, right? They're either very big time morning people or they're not. And so when they come into the bathroom, they either don't want to be greeted with bright lights and lots of color, or they do. And so with this particular project in Minneapolis, we wanted to design a presidential bath suite. That's the new word I'm using for master bathrooms. And we went for this very vivid avocado green. I'm a child that was born and created in the 70s where avocado green was a really big thing. But I brought it back into the 21st century and then paired it with fuchsia and teal and cerulean. We have a library that's running concave around the tub because, again, I like to produce, you know, multi-purpose spaces. And so for this particular project, the client can walk into this bathroom and feel energetic and ready to face the world because it literally wakes you up. And that's, again, our responsibility to design it and tailor it to the client's individual needs.
I love that. And to that end, I love how you mentioned like your intake form, right? Like asking people what they would like out of their space. Do you sort of see that as part of your role as a designer, like addressing maybe there's certain gaps in people's lives that they'd like to fill with beauty or with function, or ideally a mix of both?
Absolutely. I mean, Katie, you have your finger on the pulse of our industry. You know that as designers, we do a lot more than just interior design. We are therapists, we are babysitters, we are legal counselors, financial planners. We do it all. So asking those questions enables us to create that bond with our clients because we're going to be partnered together for several months to a few years designing this home or this project. So I want to know. I'm not trying to be nosy. I'm not trying to be intrusive, but picking the wrong color palette, for example, and a person struggles with seasonal depression, or even right now, this pandemic where so many people are dealing with emotional and mental health challenges. I don't want it on me, Katie, that I chose something that triggered a client, a fellow human's worst, weaknesses. So let's try to, collaborate by asking questions and drawing people out, and that way we can rise together.
I love that. I bet especially a lot of people probably don't have an outlet for those sorts of, to express those sorts of things. So to share that with a designer who then can actually create a real daily reprieve for somebody is really important. So another thing that I think you're known for are your use of wall coverings. So there's another photo. Actually, this photo, I love this photo with the cloud cover. I think that's a wall cover on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you make those design decisions around how to use them, color or no color? Walk us through
Absolutely.
that process.
Well, as our fellow panelists mentioned, I also am all about texture and varying textures in a space. And wall coverings definitely bring a different type of energy to a room. And so, with this historic home in Michigan, we wrapped the ceiling with this wall covering by Cole & Son, and it's like stormy clouds, which kind of speaks to again the whole Midwest, Northeast weather pattern dominating story. But then we paired it with the navy blue lacquered millwork to give it more of a fresh, hip take on a traditional space. And I think that wall coverings, they bring to a room, Katie, an element that paint alone can't create. It's like looking at the fashion runway. I'm always studying the works of Valentino and Elie Saab and Belmont, and what these people are doing on the runway with their models, draping in these fantastical gowns and fabrics, the pattern play, the energy that is in those textures. You can't create that with paint. So I think that wall coverings bring that little extra ingredient that, again, used judiciously, can make a space and take it to the realm of wow. And I like using it on ceilings. I think sometimes clients are a little ambivalent about investing in high-end wall coverings because they have children and dogs and cats and whatnot. So if you put it on the ceiling and invest up there, first, you're spending a lot less. And secondly, it looks amazing. Now, if your kids are getting up there to the ceiling and damaging the wallpaper, that's a problem that I can't help you with. That goes far beyond all the different hats that we designers, wear. But it is a great investment piece to take into account when designing a room.
Absolutely. And I bet designers on the call will be interested to know who designed this home, possibly in a previous iteration. Is this Mario Kawada home? Can we mention?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, Mario was a mentor and a friend. I miss him so much. He designed he renovated this historic home back in the 90s. And then my clients took it over. Real quick anecdote about that. We had dinner in Las Vegas, he and I, and the previous homeowner told my clients that he had done this project. And so I said, hey, by chance, Mario, do you recognize this house? And I showed him on my phone and swiped through, and he was like, oh yeah, that's the house over there in Bloomfield Hills. And I said, yeah. He said, so you renovated it? I said, yeah. He says, I like it a lot. And he was a total jokester. He was always, cracking jokes. He says, where's all my chintz? Because he was the prince of chintz. And there was copious amounts of swags and jabots and drapery everywhere, beautifully done. But again, it was from a certain era, and I had taken all of it out because I didn't know he had done it, Katie, during the project. So I said, well, let's just say there's a very well-dressed homeless person out there because I put them all in the dumpster. And he was like, Corey, that was like 6 figures worth of chintz. I said, yeah, I know. I'm sorry, man. I went for simple Roman shades and kept it light.
It's absolutely perfect. So I'm sure he appreciated your take on it.
Yes. Yeah, he liked it. He said it's okay, which is good.
I love that story. Well, we're going to move into some Q&A with everybody now. So we're going to bring back all of our panelists. Thank you, Corey, for that. I always have fun chatting with you, especially about the intersection of design and the way we live. It's not just about beautiful objects. It's really how do you improve somebody's quality of life and infuse it with art and beauty and a sense of peace, right? That's what we're all looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Ryan and Sarah are back, and I'd love to talk a little bit about product. So specifically, your collection is full of some of these themes that we've discussed today, and I'm wondering if you can share a few of your favorites. They can either be existing favorites, maybe they're launching soon. What are some that you'd like to share with us?
Sure, yeah. I kind of want to just keep listening to Corey, but I think his stories are amazing, but I'll try to give you something from our side. Yeah, I think we've got a lot of great stuff, as I was saying earlier, and we just have a huge focus on design and newness and trying to offer exciting things, which I think a lot of our panelists have been talking about today. As much as we can. We have a designer we've worked with in the past. His name's Ross Cassidy. He's based in LA. I don't know if any of our panelists know him, but he's a super talented designer, an old friend of CB2. So we're going to launch a really fun, high level, exciting upholstery collection with him, I believe, tomorrow. So that'll be really exciting. I think then, in March, we'll do another fun collaboration that will come out. And then April, May, we'll have, the outdoor collection, which is launching even earlier than that. And we'll even be getting into designs. We talked a lot about vintage design today, and we're going to be really looking at how can we, partner with some vintage designers or their families on reissuing some of those old designs, classic designs for the new modern way. And I think a combination of vintage design, new design, we're really looking forward to offering fresh things. And I think back to Sarah's point on outdoor, it's such a great, there's such a shift in focus, I think, of hanging out outside and wanting to feel as inspired outside as you do inside, that I'm super excited about our outdoor collection too. So
very cool. And so as the designers, we could start with Corey. Among these trends, obviously color has long been a part of your repertoire, but among the trends we've talked about today, maybe there was one that Andre or Adam mentioned that stood out to you. Is there an example of the ways that you've kind of worked that into your design project so far? Anything that you're excited for this year that you've seen today that you've already started working on?
I am really excited about the return of the classic sitting room. And we were talking about this in our prep, we spent so much time binging on Netflix and television shows in mass this last, 11, 12 months with the pandemic. And I think that people have gotten their full of technology and Zoom calls and Zoom dinners. And I think people are just yearning to get back to good old conversations. So already we're seeing a lot of requests from clients who are asking for a dedicated sitting room with no television sets, no technology, just groupings of furniture where people can sit and chat and have book club and gossip and talk about people they don't like down the street, and all the things that I think we kind of lost, that we took for granted. And I think the pandemic has kind of rattled us back to reality of like, oh my God, we need human connection. We need to talk and converse and get to know each other once again. So I think that's coming back really strong. I think dedicated dining rooms, building upon that same note. For a while there, people are like, I don't want a dining room. We never use it. We don't use it for Christmas. I want a big island in the kitchen where we can just eat and go. And then everyone sits at the island, Katie, with their newspapers and their cell phones, and they ignore each other. Yep. Again, people have had their full of that during this pandemic. So folks are like, no, you know what? I think I want a dining table. I want to talk to my children and get to know them again. Like, it's amazing what 9 months can do. But I'm very grateful for those trends.
I love that. I'm in favor of that too. Adam and Andre, are there any trends that you've noticed that you're already incorporating that we maybe haven't touched on yet?
I think that something that really resonated with us when we were talking about this all before was this idea of the iconic self, or the interior that's really a pure expression of a person and what makes them who they are. And we think about this a lot, of course. I mean, I think all designers are really trying to bring something out in their clients and to realize something that's very, very much an expression of them and how they want to live and how they see themselves and how they want their kids to grow up. All this kind of stuff. And it kind of got us thinking about the idea of sincerity and how trends and what is popular is so fun to pay attention to, and informs us and inspires us. But it is kind of an interesting idea, I guess, that at the core of making an expressive interior, we've found when working with clients is just that they love every single piece, and that they have a connection to every single thing, that they think it's great, whether it's something that was inexpensive that we got on eBay, to something that we've commissioned, to something valuable that was gotten at auction, whatever it is, that they love everything. And that ultimately, if they do and they they get an enjoyment out of looking at everything and seeing the way things are combined and interacting with each other and seeing the different qualities that they bring out in each other. That interior, whether it's trendy or not, will stand the test of time, because it's true. You know, it's true to them, and I guess that's kind of a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we might have we have a little time left for some audience questions, which is very exciting. I know that a lot of people on this call, we're really excited to have you all here. So a question for Ryan. So how have you continued to elevate your choice of materials and finishes this year? And, you know, speaking to what Adam just said about the client's preference and clients, you know, burgeoning understanding of what they want and who they are and how that's been changing over the last year, how have consumer preferences impacted your choices when it comes to materials and finishes?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, you know, our earlier points and Sarah's points on materials and quality of materials, right? And I think there's just a resurgence and there's just more education from consumers on quality and, you know, back to, you know, where the item's made, not only where is it made, but obviously what is it made of, and, you know, what are the materials that will stand the test of time. And I think we spoke, you know, a lot about vintage design, right? Standing the test of time, or a lot of it doing that. And I think, you know, new design can do that too, right? And I think we all agree, if made well in the right materials, you know, how can these new designs start to, you know, over the years turn into heirlooms themselves. So, you know, we look at, you know, materials like burlwood or boucle, or, you know, things like leather, things like that, that are resonating with people. And then, you know, how can we find really good quality versions of that stuff and combine that with the design I was speaking to earlier, to really get after not only something unique, but something of quality, right? Of quality for value. And I think that's a lot about what we try to do. We don't try to be, you know, the cheapest out there. We don't, and we certainly aren't the most expensive. But what we want to do is offer quality designed, unique design at a price point that is of value. And I think that's, you know, that's the best way I think we can take consumers' feedback and interest in materials.
Absolutely. We have one more question for the designers before we unfortunately have to say goodbye. So I would invite Andre or Corey or Adam to weigh in on this. The question is, how do you balance trends with the classics? And do you have a philosophy when it comes to mastering the mix?
Who wants to go first?
Go for it.
So, okay, so what I like to do is look at what worked before, right? So I look at the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Babylonians, and find out how they lived their lives, how they dressed their bodies, how they built their homes. And those things, the jewel tones they used, for example, were used to denote royalty, the amethyst, the rubies, the emerald, the sapphire. So those colors we know work because they've always worked for literally hundreds of years. But the goal is to remain evergreen and to remain present in today. So you have to still remix it and give it a little bit of a spin and make it your own. So what I do is look at what worked before and then spin off of that. And then that way, you're not so far off the beaten path that it doesn't make sense to continue pursuing that one vision. But maybe 10 years from now, you don't regret what you did and you still feel like you were fresh and relevant even 10 years ago. So that's what I do. I look at the past and let that you know, dictate my present and my future.
Well, and Adam and Andre, what about you? Mastering the mix. How do you kind of manage that balance?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think that we're also like Corey, very inspired by the past, and I have a lot of fun trying to figure out why people made the decisions they made, or why something looks the way it looks. You know, why something from the 19th century has a particular motif or color or texture. And when you start to unpack why they did the things that they did and what their influences were, and then you think about things now and a piece of furniture you're looking at that was made yesterday and what those influences are. And when you can find two things, something old and something new, that have the same influences or the same similar context, or there was just similar stuff in the air when the two people at different centuries were working on it. When you can find those things and put them next to each other in the same room, a lot of times that's when I guess something kind of fun can happen. So that's one of the ways that I guess we were able to kind of combine things from different time periods and styles, etc., is by looking at what's the underpinnings of the process.
So it sounds like, Corey mentioned earlier, a designer is also a therapist, a friend, an accountant, a legal expert. Then we can add historian to that list too.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. We are at our time. It was such a pleasure. CB2, we extend a sincere thanks to you for making this happen. I invite everybody to check out the trend report. We're going to be writing about it on ADPro next week. Thank you so much to Andre and Adam and Corey. It's so great to see all you, and I hope you stay in touch. We're going to be having one more event in our series, and if you're a member of ADPro, you will hear about it soon. And if not, I'm sure you'll be able to find out. We're going to be promoting it. So great to see you all, and hope to talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right, guys, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.